to another episode of the Dunwoody Dialogues, where we bring in great people and talk about the things that are going on in Dunwoody. We have great, important VIPs. We had the mayor come in and talk with us about all the great things going on in Dunwoody. There is a guy that we want to have in one day, and it's Michael Starling. His booking fee, so big. So we're working on that. Stay tuned. We'll get Michael Starling on soon. That's right. So Dan Corso has joined us this morning. He is the president of the Atlanta Sports Council, which I've always said Atlanta Sports Council, but officially on his bio, it's the ASC. And I'm going to use that. I like that, the ASC. Yeah. So Dan joined the ASC in 1999 after serving as the vice chair of the festival division for the 1998 Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. I was fortunate enough to work with Dan when I served as a sales executive focused on sports at the Atlanta Marriott Marquis. I have seen this gentleman put down a few lamb chops over the years.
Yeah, that's true. That's a weakness.
Yeah, it is a weakness. Yeah. So as president of the ASC, he facilitates the growth and development of sports in Metro Atlanta by recruiting major regional, national, and international sporting events. Since you've been with the ASC, you've hosted a few prominent sporting events, such as the NCAA Men's and Women's Final Four, Major League Baseball, the NHL, the NBA All-Star Game, and WrestleMania 27, the ACC and the SEC basketball tournaments, and most recently, the ASC managed to successfully recruit the 2025 College Football National Championship. Such a great thing. We love that. And I hear another Super Bowl's coming.
Yes.
In 2028, Super Bowl 62 is coming to Atlanta. And in 2031, they booked the NCAA Men's Final Four to come back to Atlanta. So during Dan's time at the ASC, the organization's been named the Sports Commission of the Year by the National Association of Sports Commissions 4 times, in 2000, 2004, 2006, and 2015. They're called something else today. What are they called today?
I don't know what they're called today, but we've got a long. It's been 10 years.
I was going to say,
what are we doing? We've got to
somebody
get
needs.
somebody's slacking.
That might be. You might want to delete that from the bio.
Let's change that line item to just say 4 times.
Just stop with that. Right?
Years out. Yeah.
You still serve on the board of directors for the ACBB?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. So the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau. He's on their board. Also on the College Football Hall of Fame's board. Yeah. Excuse me. And you also advise the Celebration Bowl.
Yes.
So Dan's a little busy. Welcome, man. Glad you're here.
Great to be here. Thank you all. Thank you for having me, Mayor. Thank you for coming out this morning. Really appreciate you being here. I am, in all full disclosure, from Marietta, so I apologize, not from Dunwoody. My wife and I moved here to Atlanta from Orlando back in 1995. We just first got married, pre-Olympics, and we put our roots in Marietta at that time and haven't left. So we've raised 2 children here in Atlanta. They've now moved on and are living elsewhere, but we call Atlanta home, and I think everybody here knows no matter what part of Atlanta you live in, we're all kind of one metro region. We're all part together here. So great parts of the city and the region to live in, and we've called it home for 30 years now.
Oh, I love that. So, Dan, you booked a few big programs in the city, and I mentioned Final Four coming. We've hosted a few Final Fours in Atlanta, and you've been involved in those as well, Super Bowls, and there's this little soccer tournament coming up. That's kind of a big deal. What does it take, and who gets involved in booking those programs?
So every city across the U.S. has a group like ours. Large markets, small markets, whatever it may be, and we all do the same thing. We all exist to compete against each other to recruit sporting events to our respective cities. It's very competitive. The reason being because these sporting events, no matter what it is, no matter what the size or scale of the event is, are beneficial to the community that's hosting them because it drives visitation, it drives people to the local businesses, it creates tourism, it creates media attention, there's a chance to tell the story of the community that's hosting the event itself for the media coverage and the broadcast of those events. So it's highly competitive. Over my 26 years now, if the math is correct, I've seen more and more sports commissions or councils, whatever they may be called, grow or come up across the country. So cities that you wouldn't even think would be interested in sporting events have a group like ours because they see the value in sporting events and they're building towards trying to get into that industry. So I like how Mark indicated the long-term calendar. You heard he said that the 2031 men's Final Four. We had a group in yesterday from the World Rugby Union. We did a site visit with them. We're looking at the men's World Cup of Rugby in the early 2030s as well. So that's an example of sporting events are looking to place their events, bid their events farther out than what it used to be because they're bigger now than they ever used to be, these sporting events. They need more hotel rooms than they ever used to be, as you well know from your days at the Marriott. They need more venues to have fan-related events. So they're trying to get ahead of the conventions that booked way in advance, and they're trying to get on par with conventions. So we're looking at events, in the 2031, 2032, 2033 time period today. So that's how far in advance we look to try to bid and place them.
And you do this with a team, right?
Yeah.
And so this is also, I think, very interesting. The ASC is, what is the parent organization of the ASC?
So we're a part of the Metro Atlanta Chamber, which is unique to any other sports commission or council in the country. We're actually the only one now remaining as part of our chamber. Most are part of their local Convention and Visitors Bureau, or they're an independent organization. And it's really just depending on the market and how the entity is funded. We're privately funded as part of the Metro Atlanta Chamber. It's a private company. We're a private company. We're a 501c6. We raise all of our own money to pay for staffing. I have a staff of 6, including me. We raise all of our money to pay for our programming and our cost of doing business, which, again, is the recruiting and the organizing of these big sporting events. So some organizations like ours across the country are part of their CVB, and they actually generate money through the events that they bring in. So a CVB typically receives money from the hotel motel taxes in that city. So if a sporting event comes into that city and generates hotel motel tax, part of that tax money revenue is spit down to the organization that brought the event here. So it's kind of a cyclical setup. But we're privately funded and kind of like it that way.
So I hear there are private jets when you book Super Bowl, right?
Not
Is
for
that
me.
true?
Yeah,
you
not
get
for
a
me.
private jet,
Yeah,
you go to
not
New
for
York?
me. Yes, we do go to New York, yes, but Delta, hello, we're big partners with Delta. So there is a little bit of travel in it, Mark. I think that's where you're going. We do, a lot of times now the world has changed, right? Everything is, as through COVID, I think the ongoing byproduct from COVID is virtual meetings and virtual connectivity. And I've seen travel cut down quite a bit. Yesterday's meeting with World Rugby Union was in person because we were touring the stadium and some other venues that they wanted to see. But we've had 2 calls with them, meetings with them prior to that yesterday's site visit where it was virtual. A couple of people from Ireland, a couple of people from Chicago. So, the connectivity through virtual meetings, I think, has really helped. And quite frankly, as a small nonprofit, has decreased our travel budget a little bit, which has helped.
What is it that attracts these businesses, these major sporting events to Atlanta? I mean, we think we have great assets,
Yeah.
but what is it that really seems to be the linchpin or linchpins for bringing these programs to the city?
So I mentioned the growth across the country of venues and organizations trying to fill those venues with sporting events, no matter if it's a Super Bowl, a World Cup, or a pickleball tournament. It doesn't really matter. It's all about that activity in the community from the event. What I have found is events will really go to any city one time if the business arrangement is correct, if the timing is correct, if they feel like there's a connectivity to that market for their event and their fans. The real test is when a big event or an event selects a city for a second time. It's repeat business, right? Everybody here is a business owner. If you get those repeat business, those repeat customers, you know you're doing something pretty good. And I think that's part of our main talking point. You referenced the College Football Playoff National Championship, which we hosted back on January 20th, Notre Dame taking on Ohio State at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It was a 2-year planning period. But we were the first city in America to host that event 2 times. It's a big honor. CFP can go anywhere they want. Everybody wants the college football championship in their city if they have the stadium and the hotel capacity and the wherewithal to put it on. But they selected us. In fact, they called several years ago saying, hey, we have an opening for 2025. Would you all be interested in working with us to host it? We said, absolutely. So I think the idea of being able to get repeat business shows that city, that we, in particular here in Metro Atlanta, really know how to put on a big sporting event. We have the people and the organizations and the infrastructure that work very well together that make an event successful. Second, I think that the other biggest, couple other big factors are we have a history, right, going back to '96 with the Summer Olympics, and even prior to that with the Super Bowls and our first men's Final Four that you referenced. Our history with that event, the first one was back in 1977. So going way, way back, 50 years almost, we've had sporting events coming through Atlanta. So we've got a history and a reputation. We also have great venues. We have great places to play and stay, great places to eat, great amenities. We've got an infrastructure of a walkable downtown footprint. If you've been to Mercedes-Benz Stadium or State Farm Arena recently, you'll notice everything is walkable. That becomes very fan-friendly, right, and user-friendly for the event owner. And then, of course, we're connected to the world and the country through the airport. So over 80% of the U.S. population can get to Atlanta on one flight. So we've all traveled. It's never fun to connect and have to get a connecting flight, right? But if you can get on one plane and get to your destination, that becomes invaluable. And that's what we have here in Atlanta for really most of the country.
Yeah, I think, when I worked in downtown Atlanta, the struggle that we had booking all business in Atlanta was Atlanta's identity, right? And I think one of the major thing we have in Atlanta is our airport, right? Great lift and great hotels in downtown. We don't have Mouse Ears. We don't have Bourbon Street.
Right.
We don't have Broadway. So it really is the assets that the city offers, which is key to making this easy.
But I would add to that, we also have pockets. I call them pockets. Dunwoody is a pocket, right? Of great areas to come into, draw visitation here, and I'm sure we'll talk about that with World Cup. Opportunities for visitors to come see Dunwoody, opportunity for visitors to come see downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, the Beltline. I mean, we have different parts of the area where we market, say, look, your event may take place in downtown because that's where the big events are, but there's a whole part of Metro Atlanta and quite frankly the state that you can go see while your fans are here, while your media are here. So I think that's our opportunity to really sell through.
I love that. And that's a great transition because I want to talk about World Cup. But before we go there, there's a tournament happening this summer. Talk about that.
The FIFA.
Yes, that one.
Yeah, FIFA Club World Cup. So
there's so many, right? Which one?
I'm trying to figure. Okay, so we also have a Major League Baseball All-Star game just right down the street on 285.
Yep.
So that's great to have that come back. That will be exciting. Mm-hmm. But we do have, as a kind of a prelim to next year's FIFA World Cup, FIFA has created what they're calling a Club World Cup, not completely different than the World Cup of next year, which is basically country versus country. The Club World Cup is team versus team, club versus club. So they launched this. This is the first year that they're doing it. There are a handful of cities that are doing it. We are one of them. We have 6 matches down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and we've got teams like Manchester City playing. There we go. Look, I'll just stop there.
All the way from Manchester City. Just
a random team, and there we go. So you got, but that's an example. So something for everybody here in Atlanta. So that is. It's not necessarily, in my opinion, a test run for the World Cup in 26 because there's not a fan fest that we're required to do. It's basically 6 independent matches happening inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium with a wide variety of fans coming in. But that building knows how to put on soccer events. If you've been to an Atlanta United match, you know they do a great job. And so we'll look forward to seeing how that goes this summer.
All right. So next summer, 2026, we've got the World Cup. There are a number of people in this room that want tickets. Can you help us?
I'm looking for tickets also. So if you know of any, let me know.
I wanted to solve that.
Scarce.
Right?
Yeah. No, there are no tickets available. So here is how our model works for these big sporting events: Super Bowl, Final Four, the CFP Championship, World Cup. Is that we at the Atlanta Sports Council lead the effort with partners to recruit the event to Atlanta. I cited rugby as an example for 2031, 32, 33, whichever year we can get. Once we are secured with the event, once it's on the books, the planning process for those events is about 2 to 3 years out, depending on the event. Super Bowl is about 2 years, CFP's 2 years, Final Four 2. World Cup's been since 2018, so it's been going on forever. We organize what we call a host committee. It's a nonprofit. We form another nonprofit within the nonprofit, and we put the name of the event and followed by host committee. So the Atlanta World Cup host committee, not a creative name, but efficient. And we then tie in partners to be a part of that organization, like the ACVB, like the stadium, the city, the state, Metro Atlanta Chamber, and others. And we all kind of bring people from our organizations to the committee as workforce, kind of execs on loan, and then we get the work helping to plan the event. The host committee is not responsible for the matches inside the building, right? That'll be FIFA. We're not responsible for a number of different things related to the teams. Our job really is to kind of get things lined up in advance of the tournament so that when FIFA comes in and runs their tournament, it goes very smoothly for them. So we are kind of that convener organization. We also pay for the event, and it's very expensive. So we are obligated through our contract with FIFA to underwrite the cost of putting on the event at the FIFA World Cup. So we have a countdown clock. We're just south of 450 days away from our first match. We have 8 matches, which is tied for second most in the country. Dallas has 9. We have 8. Our first match is June 15th of next year, and then we go June 15, June 18, June 21, 24, 27. We take a short nap. We have a match on July 1st, July 7th, and then a semifinal on July 15th. So 8 matches. Incredible amount of activity with that tournament. Couldn't be happier. We wanted to get the final match. We were trying to bid the FIFA to say, hey, Atlanta would be a great final match. We've got a great soccer profile here through Atlanta United. We've got a great building. We've got 15,000 hotel rooms by 26 in walking distance to the stadium. It's going to be fantastic. We've got a great airport connecting to the world. We won the finals. Well, FIFA requires 80,000 minimum capacity of a stadium to host the finals. We were tapping in just about the mid-70s. And we were trying to find people standing room only on the roof, in the closets. We were trying to pad that number. We just couldn't get there. But we ended up getting a semifinal, which to me is a great opportunity. Dallas is the other semifinal, and the final ended up going to New York City, which makes sense.
Yeah, that's good. It brings to mind a couple of things. Number one is all of these individual games can they be equated to a Super Bowl, an individual Super Bowl? So we're getting all these games that are each individual like Super Bowls?
I've heard that. It depends on who's coming, right? Who the teams are, and we will not know. Cities will not know, including Atlanta, which countries or teams, interchangeable, are coming to play in our first group stage of those June matches, those 5 June matches, until FIFA does the draw, which is this December. The first week of December, they'll announce the date, and they will do the tournament draw, and that's where everybody is slotted. Qualifying is going on now. The U.S. as a host country is an automatic qualifier, so they will be participating in the tournament. We hope, obviously, they'll find their way here to Atlanta. They start out west, but then hopefully they'll find their way to Atlanta as they play through the tournament. But I think that's the real opportunity here, and as I speak to groups around in different parts of Metro Atlanta, well, of course, the competitions are downtown. The Fan Fest that we'll do is in Centennial Park, which is steps away. That makes sense, right? But once we know the countries that are coming in December, when they do the draw, that's where I think the opportunity is for municipalities around the region to say, hey, how do we market our region to those visiting fans? Let's just pretend that Italy is part of our draw. Well, you can bet Charlie's Italian Market is going to do something for the Italian fans coming into Atlanta to watch Team Italy. That's the opportunity. We as a host committee can't make that happen for you, but I think regional organizations can look to identify, okay, now we know who's coming. What can we do to create some opportunity to benefit? I'm not saying economically benefit, perhaps just show off our community to those visitors that are coming in, and potentially even the media that come in.
I love that. So Dunwoody has a MARTA station. Did you know
There
that?
you go. Yes, a
Yeah.
very important one.
Makes us a really attractive
It does,
destination
right.
for folks that want to stay in Dunwoody and take the train down to catch the game. Because I do hear parking's going to be a little sticky downtown, right?
Yeah, as I said earlier, one of our biggest sales pitches to these big events is the walkability. Hey, look, you could fly from anywhere in the country to Atlanta, get an Uber or a MARTA to downtown, because that's where the event is, check into your hotel, and then you never have to get in a mode of transportation again if you don't want to until you go back to the airport, because it's all walkable. The challenge of that walkability is we lack parking, and parking now is becoming more and more important to these big events because they have more VIPs, more sponsors, more media that need a place to park. So we're a little pinched in that case, but also parking is also taken off the table for the most part in these large-scale events because the security planning becomes much tighter, right? More people, bigger events, more security, so the secure perimeter around the venue itself expands, and then that parking is within that perimeter. So that kind of gets taken out. So yes, we're going to promote MARTA, we're going to promote ride share to downtown or wherever you're going, and then walk from there. But much like you were saying, fans can stay here in Dunwoody and then MARTA down to the stadium, which they can. You can also promote Dunwoody to the visiting fans that are staying downtown and say, hey, get in the MARTA, come up into Dunwoody and go to Charlie's Italian Market. As an example, you can do that.
Yeah, and then you will be doing that.
Yes.
So at Discover Dunwoody, we've already started some of these processes. For example, Argentina has a consulate here in Dunwoody. Who knew? We've already started talking to them. They're going to help us promote in Argentina that we'll have opportunities in Dunwoody, and those are, notice I'm being very vague because we are identifying those opportunities. So one of the traditions here at Rotary Club of Dunwoody is we love to ask questions. So everybody out here is asking me to stop talking so that they can ask a question. And so there's one. We're going to go to Charlie first since you hollered.
Here we go.
So we're going to go to Charlie first, and then we'll work our way around.
Charlie, I'll take a hero sandwich toasted, please.
Monetary incentives we have to give these people to attract them, because other than just the hotel rooms and the rest of it, there's got to be incentives that you provide to these people.
It depends on the event, Charlie. It's a good question. Way back, you used to pay actually rights fees. You'd have to pay a check to the event owner to say, look, we'd love to have you come here. Here's the fee that you're asking for, and then we get into the planning. That's kind of gone away now. The most of it is there's not really any cash payments, really. It's just that we are obligated to pay for the operational aspects, and they're not. So if it's a transportation system, if it's a volunteer program, if it's signage on the buildings just to kind of create a vibrant atmosphere, if it's a fan festival, if it's a watch party, whatever they may ask, if it's rentals on certain venues that they need to use, it's our responsibility to underwrite the costs of those. Yeah.
I've got the microphone, Rick.
Yeah.
Oh, you keep talking. No. You go. Just ignore me.
You mentioned, I'm sorry,
This is what famous people have when they have microphones shoved in their face.
just wasn't sure what was happening. So my mind's on SEC football.
Yes.
And you didn't talk specifically about the SEC championship here. Just curious what role the ASC plays in keeping the SEC championship in Atlanta.
Excellent question. In the example of a Southeastern Conference event, or trying to think of another event where they will go directly to the venue. In this case, they negotiate directly with the stadium on their business terms for the stadium to host that event. We, as an organization, aren't involved in that because it's a direct negotiation between those two. Where we get involved in is there a competitive national bid process for an event. We quarterback that process. So we need to bring the stadium in, we need to bring the hotel community in, we need to bring the city, the state, Georgia Tech, Georgia State, depending on the university, the Atlanta Falcons, if it's a Super Bowl, and we organize that bid process. Anything that's a direct event owner to venue negotiation, we're not necessarily involved in that. We'll support it once it's here with volunteers or advocacy or anything that fundraising, perhaps if they need it. But we don't really get involved in the business aspect of it. I don't know if that answered you, but that's the answer.
Dan, you talked about the soccer. Is there any discussions or possibilities with the Women's World Cup?
Yes. So the U.S. Soccer has come out. They're working with FIFA to look to host the 2031. Again, back to that year. It's going to be a very busy year. 2031 Women's World Cup. And they have just started the process of talking to cities, which we have spoken to them about. We haven't gotten into any of the details yet. That's forthcoming. We'll need to talk to them about what their expectations are, what are the costs, what can we learn from 26 that might apply to 31. A lot of questions to go through in that process, but I would suspect within the next year that will be identified and solidified across the country.
Yes, my question deals with, you've talked a lot about the costs that you incur doing things, but you haven't mentioned the revenue. How do you actually fund all these costs that you're committed to?
So we have a model of a third and third and a third. So a third comes from public money, either the state or the hotel motel tax that is legislated in downtown through the ACVB. We do a third in kind. So we go to look at different partners for the operational needs. If we have access to tickets, we'll do some trade-off and try to get that relieved, cost relief. So we call that VIK. And then we go to the corporate community for the other third. And we say, look, the public is giving X amount. We need the private companies, the private sector to match that. And we'll go to the Coca-Colas of the world and others within the Metro Atlanta and say, can you come in and sponsor and help underwrite this? And we look to try to grab some assets from the event. They're limited, and we have to buy them from the event in order to go to market. So we have that margin built into it, but we'll go to the private sector. And that's another benefit of Atlanta. I know in Dunwoody here, you've got many, many companies. Mayor State Farm is a huge partner in this effort for these big sporting events and many others. But we've got a great reputation of having corporate support. And I think that the great thing that we have, while we have these great events, they are spread, out, 26, we're talking World Cup, 28, we're talking Super Bowl, 31 men's Final Four, maybe a 31 women's World Cup, maybe a 31 rugby World Cup, There's some gap in between where these companies can kind of take a break and then recoup and get back into the game with us. We're not hitting them up, every year. Yes, sir.
If you could kind of wave your magic wand, what resource does Atlanta lack, or what would you like to see it create to compete in that market?
Thank you. Good question. Always funding. Always funding. I mean, the state's been fantastic. City of Atlanta's been fantastic. The corporate community's been great, and partners that give VIK. But these events are getting bigger, longer. It's not just about the competition date anymore. It's about the length of time that these events have. The Super Bowl is one day on Super Bowl Sunday, but it's a 10-day period of events. So that means 9 more days of hotels, volunteer programs, transportation, shuttles, security, so the costs get bigger. And I think the future is going to be where the cities that are going to remain competitive are those that can find the funding to keep up with the cost of hosting these. Now, the bigger the event, though, the bigger the impact, right? So the people are here longer, they're spending more money, so the economic impact kind of overcomes what the cost is. In the case of a World Cup next year, we're anywhere from a $65 to $75 million budget, but the economic impact is projected at a minimum $500 million, across the region. So it's a pretty good ROI.
I have one quick question. You kind of touched on it early in your conversation about security. So tell me, who is the main responsible for security? What are the considerations and the things that you have to think about for a big event like this, and who pays for it?
Yeah. So again, that's back to the local host committee is responsible for that, but that is where the public money comes in and helps out. Right? We all, our state and city and region want to keep everyone safe, not just residents, but the visitors coming in. In the case of a World Cup, FIFA, in partnership with the U.S. government, will lead the security planning for all cities, and then the local cities, in this case, City of Atlanta and the state of Georgia and other agencies, will work with them to kind of tailor the plan for what suits downtown. We have great history from our Super Bowl back in 2019, Super Bowl 53, that we can borrow. The CFP Championship is another good example that we could use some of that security planning to apply, because the benefit is it's still the same stadium, it's still the same campus as whatever the event is. So there's some history there and some learning from one event to the next that we can apply. The World Cup is on a different level than any other event because of the size of it. It's happening across 11 U.S. cities all at the same time. So the federal government's going to come in and provide tremendous resources to each city to help in that plan.
Okay, the mayor has the last question.
There we go. Here we go, Mayor.
Good morning, and
Good
thank
morning.
you for joining us
Yes,
in
ma'am.
Dunwoody. How do you decide which opportunities that you're going to pursue? Because clearly there are many, obviously annually occurring, like the Sweet 16 a few
Yes,
weeks
we
ago.
just had it, right?
Which probably benefited from having Auburn
Sure
down the
did.
street.
Yeah, not bad.
But how do you choose? What's your decision process, and how does that work?
Very good question. So the first rule is we'd like to have everything all the time. So that we start there. So then we get into, okay, what are the time periods? Does it fit in the general calendar of the venue? And I keep saying the stadium, because most of the things we are Mercy, but it could be State Farm Arena, could be Gas South Arena up in Gwinnett, whatever it may be. Is the venue available over the dates that's required? Does the venue agree to what the event is asking? And if you can get through that hurdle, then you move to the next step. And Mark knows this from his Marriott days, now in Dunwoody. Are the hotels available? Because you can't have an event without hotel rooms. And so if you can get through those first two steps and you have a clear runway, then you say, okay, let's go for it. But then you also look at, will this event fit here? Does it fit kind of who we are and what we've done? You know, we love the large events. We have a reputation for a large event city. Do we believe that we can fundraise to the level that we're going to need in order to put on the estimated costs? And do we have a history with them? You know, I mean, FIFA is interesting because we've never worked with FIFA before, right? Atlanta has not. The last time the Men's World Cup was in the U.S. was in 1994. Atlanta was not a host city. So this is our first time working with them. We've worked with the NFL many times. They're great partners. The CFP, as I said multiple times, they're great partners, the NCAA. We kind of have a good rapport with them in a cadence. FIFA's a little different, but you can't pass up on a chance to host FIFA World Cup. So if we can get through those first couple of hurdles and go through that analysis, then we'll usually go for it. But we don't get all the ones we want. You know, sometimes there's pinch points and it just doesn't fit the right way. Good question.
Well, please, let's give Mr. Corso a round of applause for joining us today.
Thank you. Good job, brother. Good job, Mark.
Good to see you.